So my name's Luke O'Neill and I am an immunologist and I work in Trinity College Dublin, and I'm very happy here today to tell you all about the magic and the wonder of the immune system. Now, I've worked on this myself for a long time, probably over 30 years, and I know a lot about the immune system and how it works. And the reason why it's so important today, of course, is this is the bit of your body that protects you from this nasty virus, this virus that causes COVID-19. And there's loads of people interested now in the immune system, which is great. And I'm going to give you an account of it, tell you what the bits are, how it works, and why it's so interesting. And on this first slide here, you'll see I've written down the immune system, your best friend to protect you from diseases. And that's exactly what it is. It'll protect you from all these nasty diseases. And it's a very complicated thing. It involves your blood, it involves your bones, it involves all these white blood cells in your circulation going all over your body, defending you against these infections. Now, those strange yellowy symbols, we use those in my lab and in many labs to say there may be infectious things in the lab. Because, of course, if you work on things like viruses, you want to make sure you don't catch the virus. So very often we've got safety signs up saying, watch out. That's called a biohazard sign, and we have that all over the place, and we use that a lot to make it clear where in laboratories where these viruses are. Now, a good way to start with this is to talk about diseases, because obviously the main job of the immune system is to stop you getting sick. And you can get sick for all kinds of reasons. And some of you will have had colds or the flu. You might have certain diseases that affect you in various ways. And on this slide, I've got on the bottom half, I've got diseases like cancer. And hopefully none of you have that. Children do get cancer, of course. You may know people with cancer. That's a disease where cells in your body start to grow too much. They might be in your liver or in your brain, and they form what's called a tumor, a big swollen tumor, and that's what damages you. And sadly, cancer can kill people as well. And there are treatments for cancer which are great, that help people. And in fact, the immune system can fight tumors, as I'll explain, and fight cancer a little bit later. Beside that, then I've got things like heart disease, because your heart can get damaged. Next, the next disease along is that's actually your fingers, if you can believe it, having a disease called arthritis, where the fingers get all swollen and sore. And that's actually the immune system attacking your own joints. I'm going to mention that a bit later as well. But I guess for today, we're mainly talking about germs that cause disease. And germs like fungi can infect your foot. Parasites, these are horrible little germs that can cause diseases. Viruses, that's our big one, of course, at the moment. And then bacteria, and all these germs can make you very sick. And of course, your immune system is there to fight them. These things are often so small because viruses are very tiny. And so are bacteria. You need a microscope, and that little thing there in the corner there is a microscope to see them. And we can see these little tiny germs using a microscope. And on my next third slide, this captures the message for today. The key part of your immune system that kills bacteria and kills viruses are called white blood cells. And these are in your blood, and they are actually white. Down a microscope, they look white. You've also got red blood cells in your blood. Those red blood cells make the color red in your blood. They carry oxygen around your body. So the blood has two things. It's got white blood cells in your immune system, and it carries oxygen. All your organs need oxygen, and you use oxygen actually to burn things like glucose. And that's where energy in your body comes from, you see. And that's a separate function for blood. The function we're talking about is, which means what it does, is the immune system is in these white blood cells. And there we see a white blood cell beating up this virus that causes COVID-19. The name of the virus, by the way, that causes this horrible disease is called SARS-CoV-2. It's a horrible name. Scientists often use these big words. And it's a coronavirus, as you may know. The family of viruses are called coronaviruses. And towards the end, I'll come back to SARS-CoV-2. But there we see a white blood cell with boxing gloves on, beating up that virus and defending you from it. And the great news is 99% of people can fight this virus and clear it from their bodies. Only 1% get really sick. So that's good. Our immune system is there to fight this virus. Now, the next slide, slide 4, is why do we need an immune system? Well, we all live in a very dirty world. And this picture here of a little boy with all these germs, and he might be breathing them in. You might get them through a cut, you know, you might touch a surface and put it up to his face, and all these germs are there. There's billions of them. And they're trying to get into our bodies and eat our lunch inside our bodies. And our immune system is there to fight them. So we need the immune system because we live in a very dirty world. And there it is. There's a good little diagram. My next 5th slide. There's the immune system. Those little greeny things are viruses. And in fact, they're coronaviruses. See how they have a little, like a little bit of like a sun, I suppose, with these little spikes coming out of it. Corona means crown because it looks a bit like a crown, I guess, on a king's head. And there we have the immune system stopping those nasty coronaviruses. And that's what we're all about today to discuss this. Now, there are many types of germs. In fact, there's hundreds and hundreds of types of germs that can infect you and make you sick. This next one is the germ that causes the flu. And you may have heard of influenza. It's very like COVID-19. Your lungs get infected, you can't breathe properly, you feel really sick and tired, and then the immune system gets rid of it. And that's what flu looks like. It's a tiny, tiny thing. You need a very powerful microscope. That, what you're looking at on the screen there now, has been magnified, wait for this, 500 million times. That's how small these viruses are. You've got to really magnify them. And we use you've probably heard of a magnifying glass. That's a tiny way. You can maybe increase the size of something 3 or 4 times with that. That microscope, the electron microscope, is really powerful. And now we can see them. And that only happened in the 1930s when this microscope was invented. We can now see viruses for the first time. There's a bacteria. That's another germ that can make you feel really sick. And doesn't it look nasty? All these little dangly bits, really hairy little creature, you know, and bacteria cause a whole range of diseases. When you get a sick stomach from eating food maybe that's a bit dirty, that's being caused by a bacteria, for example. When you cut your skin and you might see redness and swelling, and I'll come back to that actually, it's called inflammation, that's being caused by a bacteria infecting your skin. Now again, the immune system can chew that up and attack it and get rid of it. And the next one, slide number 8, things called fungi can cause infections as well. And most fungi are harmless. They don't cause much disease, but some of them do cause disease. There's an example of a fungus which infects your foot. It causes athlete's foot, and that's another way we can get sick, we can get sore, our feet get better. And again, the immune system can get in there and kill those fungi. And then my next one are parasites. This is slide number 9. And these creatures make you very sick as well. And again, they're tiny things. They're much bigger now than viruses and bacteria actually, but these can make you feel very sick. Malaria is an example of a parasitic disease, and malaria is spread by mosquitoes. It's an insect. There's a mosquito biting someone's skin and squirting in the malaria parasite in the middle there. You saw the little brown things. That's the malaria parasite. And that infects your body and causes malaria, which can be very dangerous. And look at this creature on the right. That's a parasitic worm that infects your eyes amazingly. And parasites can live in your eyes, in your liver, in your gut. And again, our immune system can recognize those parasitic worms and kill them. I'll be back to that worm a bit later, actually. It's a horrible, evil creature, isn't it? That can make people go blind by infecting your eyes. But again, for most people, your immune system can fight it and get rid of that parasite. And there is the deadly creature that we're all obsessed with, SARS-CoV-2. That's actually what it looks like. It's 500 million times magnified. And you can see the crown, can't you? The spikes around the eyes. Now we've stained it with a special dye. It's actually a white color, but just to make it clear how to see, you can use special dyes to stain things. And there's the coronavirus. There's the thing that's now infected 1 million people, remember, and it's killed 40,000 people. The world economy has collapsed because of this tiny, tiny creature infecting our bodies and causing this horrible lung disease. And again, 99% of people will fight that virus and get better and defend it. And here's this next slide, slide 11, to give you an idea of how big these things are. That little white, that little pinky thing there, that is the SARS-CoV-2 virus, right? And as you can see, it's much smaller than bacteria. So bacteria much bigger. And here's a cell in your body, a lung cell. And they're huge compared to these tiny viruses. And you still need a microscope to see cells in your body. And that's the cell that the virus infects. So that the SARS-CoV-2 virus will jump into that lung cell in your lungs and then cause all the damage you see. But viruses are tiny, tiny things. As I say, you need a special microscope to see them. Now, of course, the question then is, how do you catch these germs? Because they're all everywhere. How do you catch them? Now, this next slide, slide number 12, here's someone coughing. Now, look at that. Can you believe the amount of spit that's come out of that man's mouth when he coughs? And if he has had virus in his lungs, every little bit of spit has loads of viruses in it. So in other words, you can catch it if someone coughs at you and now you then swallow the virus, or it goes up through your nose or into your eyes even, you know, and that's one way germs are spread. And this virus, SARS-CoV-2, is spread in that way. That's why we're told to keep 2 meters from each other, keep everything clean. If someone has coughed on something, clean it off, because that will be full of virus, you see. So one way they spread is through coughing if the virus lives in your lungs. A huge way germs spread, though, is if you cut yourself. And slide 13 shows there's a cut in your skin. The germs get in through that cut, and they go into your blood, and they end up all over your body and make you really sick. Or they can just stay in your skin and cause all the soreness and the redness in your skin. And there are 2 ways that these germs can spread. There's other ways as well. Now, the good news is, if the germs get in, and you might have inhaled them into your lungs, or you might have got them through a break in your skin, your immune system is there to fight and defend you and kill off those germs. And there's a picture of some of these immune cells. So it's there to help us and defend us. Now, if we then ask the next question, and get ready for this, what is the immune system made of? It's very, very complicated. It's made of these white blood cells. Now, on the left-hand side of this slide, number 15, here's all my white blood cells. Here's the bad guys on the right. On the left is the immune system, on the right are the bad guys. And this was done by Linda, my great friend and illustrator, who drew lots of drawings for my book, our book, The Great Irish Science Book. This is from that book. And here we see the white blood cells. They're all white. And as you can see, there's different types. It's actually very complicated. A cell that we really are interested in is called a macrophage. And there it is, a big eater. That will gobble up the germs, very importantly. These white blood cells are also called leukocytes. There's loads of types. And there's a cell called a neutrophil, back to that later. Here's a cell called a T helper cell. That's a bit like a cowboy on a horse that calls out all the reinforcements. And here's a B cell, these 2 cells. Now, I know it's very tricky, this, and very complicated, but we've got through them, some of these immune cells, and I'll explain to you what they do. And it is complicated, but these are the white blood cells. And it's a bit like you've got an army, and you've got the general, and then you've got the major, and then the soldiers in the army. That's what the immune system is. The T cell actually is the general of the immune system. The macrophage is more like one of the troops with a gun going after the bad guys. So that's why there's different types. It's just like an army, and each type then has a different job to play, I suppose, in the defense of your body against these things. Now let's go a bit deeper. So where does the immune system live? I bet you don't know this next fact. It lives in your bone marrow, amazingly. So your bones, your legs and your thighs and your arms, in the middle of your bones, the thing called bone marrow, it's a pinky stuff. That's where the immune system lives, and that's where it's made. And your bone marrow is churning out all these white blood cells all the time into your blood. So it starts in the bone marrow, that's where they are made, and then they go from the bone into your blood. And we know a lot about the bone marrow and how it works, and that's where the immune system begins in many ways. And then let's look at the different cell types. Here is a picture of macrophages, these big eaters. And that was taken in my lab, that picture, actually, because we work on macrophages. And these, you can see them, they're very complicated looking things. They have all these dangly bits coming out of them because they're sensing the world around them to try and find bacteria or find a virus and then gobble it up and shove it in their mouths. It's a bit like arms coming out and they eat it, you know. And macrophages are a really important cell because if the bacteria or the virus is now in your body, those cells come along and try to eat it. And that's the first part of the immune system. Gobble it up and basically chew it, you know, and then kill it in that way. And macrophages are the frontline cell in many ways. And here's an example of a real macrophage again. Those green things are bacteria. So you can see here now how the macrophage is grabbing the bacteria to eat it and now destroy it. And this is a very important part of our defense. Now, my next cell type, remember I told you like different troops, is called a neutrophil. And look at this guy. He's all these bubbly bits inside, right? And again, these are very good at killing bacteria. And they gobble up the bacteria, say. And then those blue bits, guess what they are? They're bags of bleach. You know the way you clean your kitchen with bleach? It turns out these cells have bleach. And they bleach the germ and kill it. And neutrophils are very important. The word neutrophil is a strange name that was invented over 100 years ago. But that's what they do. They gobble up bacteria and then they eat the thing and then use bleach to kill it. So they're really powerful ways to kill bacteria. But you didn't know you had your own bleach in your body. That's what these neutrophils are. And then this next cell type, slide number 20, guess what they're called? Great name, natural killer cells. They're a specialized assassin. And they're in your blood. And they're very good at killing cancer cells. And as I mentioned, cancer can grow in your body. And guess what? The immune system can kill cancer. It's great. It's a great way to treat cancer using your immune system. And there's a natural killer cell now killing a cancer cell. They also kill virally infected cells. So if SARS-CoV-2 has gone inside one of your lung cells, the natural killer cell can kill that. And it's a great way of killing that virus inside that cell. So they're very important as well. And look at these guys, another cell type. It's called a dendritic cell. Great name. These are like macrophages, big eaters, but they've got even more arms. They have hundreds of arms coming out of them, and they're grabbing onto bacteria or viruses and gobbling them up. And these cells are very, very important, dendritic cells, because they gobble up the bacteria, and then that's a great way to clear it. And we think dendritic cells are like a specialized big eater. They're even more effective than the macrophage. And then lastly, these cells called lymphocytes. And they're white blood cells as well, these white cells. You can see in the picture here are lymphocytes, and these are the coolest cells of the immune system. And why do I say that? Well, these are the generals. These cells tell the rest of the immune system what to do, and they can sense infections in various ways. They send out signals to bring in more troops, and they really control everything. And there are two types of lymphocyte. Now, I promise we're going to get to the end of all the different cell types in a minute. One type is called a T lymphocyte, and there's a real picture of a T lymphocyte. Now remember, these guys are cool, so put shades on them. They're cool because they remember. Isn't that great? They remember when they've seen an infection. And when you get reinfected, these guys are there, and they're ready to fight again. So they're really cool because they can remember things. And remember, they're the generals, and they can call out the rest of the immune system. And in fact, the cell type that I mentioned, the dendritic cell, remember this one with all the dangly bits? That will eat a bacteria, and guess what? It shows it to the lymphocyte. And those two cells talk to each other. It's a bit like the dendritic cell is able to sense the enemy coming towards you, and then it grabs onto it and shows it to the general and says, now look at this bad guy. And the general, now the lymphocyte, can call out all the troops. And that's a very important event. And here we see a real picture. This is a dendritic cell now showing bacteria to a lymphocyte, and between where the arrow is where they're showing them. So dendritic cells are kind of, I guess, a very important sensor then of what's going on, and they tell the general what to do is the way to think. And then finally then we have, well, also about these T lymphocytes, how they work. Once the T lymphocyte can sense the germ, it then can divide. And you can see on this slide here, here's an infected cell. The T lymphocyte can detect that infection, and that T lymphocyte now grows into big numbers and can now kill the infected cell. And imagine this cell has been infected with the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The T lymphocyte can now sense that on the surface, actually, and now can kill that infected cell. And now the virally infected cell is now dead. And that means the virus has nowhere to go. And that's a key part of how we defend ourselves against viruses. Now, finally, the B lymphocyte, the second type of lymphocyte, they've got a very important job. They make molecules called antibodies. Now, antibodies are like the attack dogs of the immune system. They're released by the B lymphocyte, these little, I suppose there's little crosses here made of green. They're antibodies, and they can latch onto bacteria and beat the bacteria up. Here we see the bacteria, and here we see the antibodies coming out and now binding to the bacteria and destroying the bacteria. They're a great way to kill bacteria. They're also very important for killing viruses. So the B lymphocytes make the antibodies as a special sort of drug in your own body to kill the bacteria and kill the viruses. And the last thing I want to mention is you've also got loads of things being made by all these immune cells. They send out special messages to wake up the immune system. These messages are called cytokines. It's a terrible word, but my lab works on these. And here we see two immune cells talking to each other with these little cytokines. They're the communication molecules. And cytokines, on the next slide, are a bit like a flare being sent off of a boat's in distress at sea. It sends up a signal. That's what a cytokine is. It's a flare to say, help, there's problems going on, to bring in more and more of the immune cells to help fight the infection. And finally then, before we get, I'm going to get specific about the SARS-CoV-2 now, a thing called inflammation happens. Now, in this next slide, slide 32, can you imagine you've got this is a piece of wood sticking into your skin, and all these bacteria now are getting into your skin. That'll become very inflamed, which means it's sore, it's red, it's swollen. That's because the immune system is going in now to attack those bacteria and help repair the damage. It's swollen because the immune cells drag some fluid with them as they leave the bloodstream, and that swells up the tissue. It's red because all the blood is rushing in. It's warm because all this blood's gone in to bring the immune system in. And inflammation is a very important part of the immune system because it brings all the cells to the place that's infected and damaged. And you need all this inflammation to bring all the cells in and get them to beat up the nasty germ. It's very important. And these things called cytokines, they're very important signals to promote inflammation. They get the whole inflammatory cascade going. Now, sometimes inflammation can go wrong and the immune system goes crazy and begins to beat up your own body. And as I mentioned earlier, You can get swollen joints in arthritis. And this slide shows swollen joints here. Sometimes it's your bowels or your skin or your brain. And these are called autoimmune diseases. My lab works on these because this is the immune system turning against you. We call this sometimes a civil war. So if the immune system is there to fight germs, like a regular war, and the germs are enemies, that's one thing. But sometimes your immune system turns on your own body, and it's like a civil war attacking yourself. And we're very interested in trying to understand that and what's going wrong in those diseases. Now, finally, let's turn to the nasty germ that we're interested in. It's called SARS-CoV-2. It causes this disease, COVID-19. So the name of the virus is SARS-CoV-2, and the disease in your lungs is called COVID-19. And this is now what's called a pandemic. And this is slide 36. That means it's gone to all over the world, as you know. This virus is in every country. Epidemic means it's widespread. Outbreak means it's a sudden thing. And at the moment, this is now a pandemic because it's all over the world, as we all know. And this is how the virus gets in. It gets into your lung cells. You can see in this drawing here, there's the virus jumping into your lung cells. There's a special thing it actually latches onto. And now it divides and makes more copies of itself. This little diagram here is the virus releasing its genetic material. The recipe to make more virus is now red. And now we make lots more virus and it spreads. And we know a lot about how this virus infects cells and spreads. And then very importantly, it infects your lungs. And when it goes out of control, and that might be because you're a bit older and your immune system is a bit old as well, or it might mean you have other diseases that make your immune system a bit weak. Now this damages your lungs and it's causing horrible inflammation in the lungs. So the lungs now begin to get very inflamed. And we see macrophages. We see lymphocytes, the two cell types I told you about, and we see these cytokines, these messages in your lungs, all driving that inflammation. And of course, the way to stop that now is an anti-inflammatory. You see, you can design a drug that will take out that process and protect you. And there are medicines now in people being tested to stop all this inflammation and stop people dying, because obviously if their lungs get so badly damaged, they might actually die. Now, lastly, then we might ask, how would you boost your immune system? Obviously, it's very important. And the word boost is one word. It's more to keep it healthy, really. And there's various ways to keep the immune system healthy. Good diet is very important. The immune system likes good food, like everything else in your body. Good night's sleep. Again, the immune system likes to have a good night's sleep as well. Exercise gets your immune system going because your blood is rushing all over your body. And try to avoid stress. So do your hobbies. Keep doing things that you enjoy, because stress will damage the immune system as well. So there's very simple ways to keep your immune system active and fight all these different germs. And the other thing is, on this next slide, slide 41, it turns out you can be a bit too clean as well. And when you're small, it's good to have a bit of dirt, because dirt helps to train your immune system. And one reason people get asthma, which is another lung disease actually, that really makes your lungs sore, is they haven't probably got enough dirt as babies, amazingly. So a good thing to do is a little bit of dirt's okay. Now, I'm not talking about nasty dirt. I'm talking about just playing outside in the garden. That's okay. It's good. That will get your immune system going as well. And then the question would be, your immune system is there to fight this germ, of course. How else are we fighting it? Well, we've all these great ways. And remember, scientists are working really hard on this to come up with ways to stop this virus in people who are more vulnerable and, you know, save their lives. And you might have a vaccine, which can protect you against infection. Back to that in a second. You might have antibodies in your body, and you can use those as drugs, give those to someone else, and those antibodies can fight infection. And there are drugs being made that can kill the virus directly. They're called antivirals, and they're very good at killing viruses dead. And then finally, there's my anti-inflammatories to stop the lungs being harmed. If you get this horrible lung disease, you can use these anti-inflammatories. So there's 4 ways that scientists are now trying to help with this horrible disease. And vaccines, what are they? Well, vaccines are great. They're little bits of a bug, little bits of a germ, let's say a bit of a virus. And you put that into your body. Your immune system recognizes that part. And now remember, I said how the immune system can remember. And now when you get the really bad guy, the immune system is there and it's been trained to fight the bad guy. It's a bit like you're putting up these wanted posters. And then when the bad guy arrives into the town, all your immune system is ready to recognize that bad guy. And the vaccine is a way to get the immune system to do that. And then we have this thing called herd immunity. See all those sheep there? You need to vaccinate a lot of people, because then the virus has nowhere to hide. There aren't enough people around then to be infected, and now the virus dies out. So you got to get enough people being vaccinated to protect everybody, I guess, is the way. And there we have it, putting the fire out in the lungs. If you develop these anti-inflammatory drugs that I mentioned, You can put the fire out. You can stop the inflammation and protect those lungs. That's a very effective way to treat that virus. So together, we can all beat this, remember. And the most important thing that you all should remember is keep your house clean, use a bit of bleach, use a bit of soap to wash everything away in case there's any virus. Make sure you stay 2 meters away from people, not to spread the infection. Keep washing your hands, because then you won't pick the virus up. And keep doing that, because then the virus has nowhere to go, and you can play your part in trying to get rid of this virus. And here it is in this slide. Wash your hands, stay apart from each other. Don't touch your face, because that's the way it gets in. Very important there about not touching your face. Keep the place clean is the key thing as well, of course. Really important. And then try and keep healthy is the key thing as we go along. And very importantly, cover your mouth and nose when you're coughing, and make sure you don't spread it that way. And everybody can do this to stop the virus. Now, let me finish on a couple of quick things. There's our book. You might want to get that. You can order it now on Amazon. Me and Linda, who did all the drawings. You can read all about the immune system in our book. It's all of science, but the immune system is in there as well, and we recommend it. It's a good laugh. And then finally, remember, you could become an immunologist. Maybe when you grow up and you decide later on what to do, you might decide to become an immunologist, because it's a great thing to be. And I want to finish now with a story of 3 famous immunologists who were in Ireland. And here they are one by one. This guy, William Campbell, he won the Nobel Prize in 2015. Guess what he discovered? A way to kill those worms, those parasitic worms. He came up with a drug to kill parasitic worms, and especially that nasty one I showed you that causes blindness. He discovered a drug that kills that worm, and then 1 million people have not gone blind because of William Campbell, because he discovered a drug to kill that nasty parasite that causes people to go blind, mainly in Africa. And he won the Nobel Prize because lots of people aren't blind because of William Campbell. And here's someone else, Elmeth Wright. He was in Trinity, did medicine in Trinity. He invented a vaccine for typhoid. And typhoid was a horrible disease 100 years ago. Lots of people, millions of people were dying. He got a vaccine for typhoid. He also made lots of discoveries about the immune system, actually. So he's another example. And then my last example is this woman, Dorothy Stopford Price. She was an Irish doctor who brought a vaccine for TB into Ireland. Now, TB was a horrible infectious disease. It killed millions of people. She brought the vaccine to Ireland. And that was a great thing, because now lots of children, and children often got TB, didn't die anymore because of Dorothy bringing that vaccine to Ireland. So you too could join us on this big adventure and become an immunologist and try to make a difference, like these 3 examples did when they were working on the immune system. And then finally, here's a reminder. What do you need to know about the immune system? It's the good guys. They're all the white blood cells, different types doing different things. And it's the bad guys. And remember, the good guys will win. In 99% of people with SARS-CoV-2, the good guys win, as happens with most infectious diseases. So remember, the immune system is your best friend when it comes to fighting. And thank you very much for listening.